Hello again. This is a video about paragraph structure, which I am calling Making a Quotation Sandwich. I will make that clear to you what I mean. One of the things that students often do as a mistake when they're beginning writers of college essays is they go and maybe they find a very good and relevant quotation that they will include in a paragraph to support a claim they're making in the paragraph, but they don't explain what it is. They just throw the quote in there. But that's almost like, let's say, imagine for a moment that there was a trial and that this was the murder weapon, that somebody was expo dry erase markered to death, and I'm the prosecutor, and I want to say this pen was found at the scene of the crime covered in blood. The forensic experts determined that it was the murder weapon. It belonged at one time, was purchased at one time by the accused who is on trial. All of this information would lead me to believe, if I were a member of the jury, that this was the murder weapon. But instead, if I just throw the quotation in and I don't do anything with it in the paper, it's as if I have taken the murder weapon at a trial and I've said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," it doesn't do anything to promote my argument unless I make the argument with the evidence. That's true in a paragraph. It would also be true in an episode of Law and Order. So making a quotation sandwich is what I would suggest you do. I would never have a paragraph that is shorter than about 6 sentences in a college essay. That's a rule of thumb, approximately. The first thing you want to keep in mind is that your topic sentence for the paragraph is going to be a lesser part of your larger thesis's claim. If you're going to prove that, I don't know, somebody killed somebody with a marker, you'll have had a lot of different kinds of information that lead the jury to immediately convict after they are dismissed to deliberate, because you have presented all kinds of evidence. So your claim, your thesis statement makes, is a larger claim than each of the topic sentences for the paragraphs. I would assume you would want approximately 6 to 10 claims, probably closer to 10 than to 6, that would be subsets of your paper's main argument. So a topic sentence is a subset of your thesis statement, a sentence that lets us know a point of your argument. And so under that, though, there's even going to be perhaps a smaller part of that assertion. I would add a sentence here before I introduce a quotation of a lesser assertion that has to do with the topic sentence. For instance, in the case of the murder weapon being the pen, my first lesser assertion might be something like, the pen was found at the scene of the crime. So already I've placed it in the right place, where conceivably in the widest possible field, it's not impossible it was used as a murder weapon. So that would be my first assertion. Then I'm going to say this, not just throw in the quotation, but I'm going to explain what the source is. I'm going to say something like, James McNeil, the forensic scientist who examined the pen once the police had retrieved it from the crime scene, found blood that matched the types of the blood of the multiple murder victims who had been penned to death. The introduction of the source allows me to understand a context again for this information. Then I have a quotation not just from any random part of my source, but a quotation that allows me to support the first lesser assertion. And I'm going to quote it after I've introduced the source and its authority to tell me what it knows. Remember, we've talked about who told you this thing matters at least as much as what you were told, because they need to have a reason to know that this thing that they're saying is true. So then you'll quote what they said, but then you'll also cite it in MLA parenthetical in-text citation style. Then I don't just leave the quotation and the citation. I have an obligation, once I've put the quotation in there, to explain what its relevance is to the point I'm making in this paragraph. I have to not just give you the quotation as my reader, I have to curate it for you. I have to explain what it means. So I would need to, in this imaginary murder trial, question the forensic expert and say, is this the pen that you found at the scene of the crime? The expert says it is. And then I would say, would you therefore assume, based on your findings, that this had to be the murder weapon? And hopefully the person would say, absolutely, there could be no other source of weaponry. This is it. So I need to explain the significance to my first lesser assertion. I may repeat this pattern of making a quotation sandwich where the quotation's the meat, as it were, of the sandwich, and the pieces of bread are the introduction to the source and its authority to speak into this situation, and the curation of the quotation that I have. And I may repeat it. The last sentence of the paragraph should always be a kind of a summary of what the paragraph included, and explain how the information in the paragraph helps prove my larger paper thesis. Not just what works in the paragraph, but how does all the information in this paragraph help prove my paper's thesis? So this is the structure of a successful paragraph. It helps people who are reading your paper to understand the logic of your thinking, and your job is to persuade your audience, not necessarily with passionate rhetoric, but with evidence from expert sources of what it is that you claim to be true, and why we should agree with you that you have interpreted what you're looking at correctly, why your assertions are founded in evidence, grounded in evidence. This is an approach to any paragraph for an academic essay that can serve. Obviously, there will be variations for different kinds of papers, but this is the core mission of any paragraph in your paper, other than the introduction paragraph and the concluding paragraph, which have slightly different missions. Let me know in class if you have questions, or come see me during office hours.